What an experienced agent does, especially in a market like this, isn't just find a buyer. It's that they amplify the demand. They create the competition. They drive the emotion. They get that fear of missing out happening among all the buyers. And that's where the real money is made. The only way to truly know how high buyers are willing to go is to take the property to market and let us figure it out through the strategy.
Welcome to Perth Property Insider, where you will learn how to grow your wealth and improve your life using Perth property. Our show is brought to you by Investors Edge Real Estate, the highly rated and award-winning property management, sales and buyers agency servicing the whole of Perth. Now, here's your host, Jared Mann.
G'day and welcome to Perth Property Insider. I'm your host, Jared Mann, and today I wanted to talk about whether you should ever sell your Perth property off market, which is a question I've been asked a lot recently, and it's one that you might be surprised to hear the answer of, because right now I'm seeing more owners tempted by a friend who has a buyer, a quiet offer that feels really strong compared to any recent appraisal that they've been given, or the idea that property sells itself anyway, so why not just save on agent's commission and do it yourself and, save 15 to 20 grand on what your agent commission might be. And I completely get it, because in a hot market, it can feel like you don't need a sales agent, you don't need a campaign or competition to get a good result. Let's face it, you could take a photo of the letterbox, put it online and probably get some offers on Facebook or through some of the main portals that you can get access to. And you might think, oh, I'm getting a good result. I'm getting offers. I'm getting sold. And it might still be higher than what agents have recently appraised for you. But I want to share a real story, real numbers, and what I've seen play out over the last 4 months, because it might completely change how you think about off-market sales at the moment and why I really discourage doing it. And I just know what's best for my sellers and how to get a record price. So let's go through a bit about the story from one of our clients. This episode actually came about from a conversation with one of our landlords who was considering sale. I gave them a conservative appraisal because I always do that. And I said something very clearly. If we take this property to market, my goal isn't just to sell it, it's to try and set a price record. But I'm giving you this conservative appraisal because we really don't know what price we might be able to push this to. And I've got a whole strategy which involves 6 points and runs much deeper than the vast majority of real estate agents, so we can push this price up and have the best chance of setting a price record. That was where I left the conversation. And that's typically what I'm doing in this market when I chat to people on it, every day, on giving them an appraisal and making sure that they sort of understand that it's conservative and we can likely get a lot more. I don't even know what that price is going to be, but I'm going to go and try and set a record. So a couple of months later, the client popped up and told me that they'd sold the property off market. Why? Because a friend said they had a buyer, and the logic was they had someone ready to go and they wanted to sell, and it was probably a good price relative to the appraisal that I gave them. It was probably at the top end of the range. They didn't tell me the price, but that's typically the case, that people have said, yep, came to me, I thought it was a good price. So you know what? I think they're absolutely wrong about that. And right now you can get a buyer very quickly in Perth. I could get you multiple offers on your property by the end of the week. You could go and get offers yourself on a property. There's a part to this that really matters. Buyers at the moment, easy to find, but the price premium doesn't happen by accident, right? What an experienced agent does, especially in a market like this, isn't just find a buyer. It's that they amplify the demand. They create the competition. They drive the emotion. They get that fear of missing out happening among all the buyers. They compete them all off against each other. They use expert negotiation and the techniques that really matter and make a difference. And they engineer this fear of missing out among the buyers. And that's where the real money is made. And to put this into perspective, on a sale last weekend, I sold a property that was $325,000 above asking price. And we've just gotten the finance approval through. Only had 14 days for finance. We've just gotten the finance approval through. So it's going ahead. And this doesn't happen because the house was nice. It was nice, and we presented it at its best, but it was by no means, an amazing house for the area, or because a buyer happened to show up. It happened because of the strategy, the competition, and the negotiation. I worked with the seller to get everything lined up, and they did an amazing job on their side with their presentation and how they prepared the house. But we had an overall strategy around the sale to create this kind of result. And that leads me to the numbers. So this is the data that's changed my view over the last 4 months. I've sold 27 properties. 25 of those sales have set new price records in the suburbs that I've sold them. And part of the joy of selling across all of Perth is I get to set lots of different price records, not just focus on one or two suburbs. So out of those 27 properties, I've set a record in the suburb for that property type on 25 occasions. So pretty high strike rate on setting a price record. And on average, they've sold for 72,000 above asking price. So let that sink in for a minute. That doesn't mean the asking price was unrealistic. I'm pushing the asking price in each case. It means that a market feedback and buyer emotion pushed well beyond our expectations. And here's the key insight. The only way to truly know how high buyers are willing to go is to take the property to market and let us figure it out through the strategy.
Just real quick before we continue on with the episode, are you getting my email updates yet? If you're not, you're missing out on our suburb intelligence reports, which we tailor and prepare for your individual suburbs of interest, showing advanced stats and insights. Must get onto those. And I also send out exclusive invitations to our events, including webinars, sundowners, and workshops. So if you're not getting those, head on over to investorsedge.com.au/join and make sure you're receiving my email updates.
So when you sell off market, you might feel like you've done well. You might even be at the top end of the appraisal range or above it. But what the last 4 months has shown me is this. Most of the time, the real price is significantly higher than anyone expects, including the owner. And most of the time when I tell people what price we've gotten, there's just quiet shock on the other end of the phone. And they almost don't, even hear me. They don't think it's real. It takes a few days to sink in. And people then message me a day or two later or call me saying, oh, thank you so much and really appreciate everything you've done. And thank you for doing, utilizing your whole strategy and doing exactly what you've said you're going to. So that gives me a buzz. And I love getting those kind of results for sellers. So why I don't recommend off-market sales for a seller is that's why I'm going to suggest that we don't accept an off-market offer. And that's important because I could get you off-market offers tomorrow if I wanted. I could call buyers, I could call agents, I could put a deal together, I could just put it out on my to my database, which I do those things when I'm taking the property to market anyway. So why not expose it to the largest group with the traditional marketing medium, social media targeted marketing, and to my database that I've grown over 18 years, and I've got 41 buyers agents and over 16,000 subscribers to my podcast. Why not put it in there as well? And I get 2 to 3 offers from that group of people per week. So that all contributes to pushing the price up that we're going to get. So the question isn't, can we sell it? The question is, how much are we leaving on the table if we don't put a 6-point strategy around the sale and go to market? So off-market sales remove that competition. They remove the urgency. They remove the emotional decision-making and the fear of missing out. And those 4 things are exactly what drive record prices and why I need to put it on market and get as much as possible. So I hear some people potentially saying, what if I need a quick sale? And that's one of the most common pushbacks I hear. I'm in a rush. Here's the reality. Even if you're in a hurry, you don't need to sell off market at the moment. We can still present the property properly, get to market within a couple of weeks, and very often sell in the first week. There's a problem if we're not selling in the first week at the moment. So realistically, you're talking about 3 weeks total extra waiting for the potential to make an extra 50 to 100K is not unrealistic on what you may make extra just to go and get a price record as opposed to selling off market. And that's not a long delay for a meaningful upside. Now, I also hear the question, what if there's a tenant, we're in the middle of our lease, and doesn't it make just sense to sell off market to an investor who's happy with the tenant? That's another big reason people consider selling off market. And I think that was the primary reason for this client. And normally, yes, we like to wait until no more than 2 months out from the end of a tenancy so we can sell to as many owner occupiers as possible and have that maximum competition. That's what I'd always try to create. But here's what's changed. In the last 4 months, I've taken 3 properties to market where the owners couldn't wait. The tenants were still in place. I tried negotiating with the tenants to have them, agree to an early lease end date. Many tenants don't want to move at the moment because it's so tight and tough to find a rental. And no matter what the compensation will offer them, they want to stay put. So we went to market anyway. In each case, the lease was more than 6 months away. One of them was 9 months away, and I think one of them was a year away. And the buyers that were home buyers still came along and still were willing to wait and still paid a premium. And I sold each of those 3 properties to home buyers when normally that market would be fully cut out. But people are prepared to make the trade-offs, are much more prepared to wait. Yes, we would have missed some home buyers that are not prepared to wait. So in an ideal world, we'd wait. But if you really need your outcome now, like if your business needs the funds, if you need it for an upgrade, it can be worth still considering selling mid-tenancy. If you understand that we're not going to get as high a price premium, we can probably still go and set a record price, but it's still possible now. So I wouldn't use that as a reason to not doing it. So being mid-tenancy is not necessarily a reason to sell off market either. So here's my overall message. If your goal is to set a record price, to know with certainty that you didn't leave money behind, and to let the market tell you the truth and all the feedback so you can make that decision, then I see no reason to sell off market. Not if you want a quick sale, not if you're mid-tenancy, and not in a market where buyers are emotional and undersupplied. Off market does feel safe. Other people do it perhaps because, I don't have to spend the money on marketing, or I don't have to do home opens. We're talking about one home open for a week where I condense all the interest together over a very short period. That marketing money that you might spend of $1,500 is going to produce potentially an extra 50 or 100,000 higher. Likewise, if you choose the right agent that's going to put the strategy around it and not just, take it easy and do it, be lazy, and you want someone that's going to create competition and have the negotiation skills to amplify the price. But that's going to make a huge difference to your world, I think, moving forward with as much as possible. So you want the right strategy. And this is where I've continued to create exceptional results for my sellers. So if you're considering selling a Perth property and someone has floated a quiet offer to you, or a mate with a buyer, or an off-market option, my advice is simple. Pause, get proper advice, reach out to me and understand where competition could really do for your price, and having a proper strategy around the sale with my goal of setting a record price could make a world of difference to you and the money that you get moving forward. So if I can help with any of your upcoming sale plans, let us know. And if you've enjoyed this episode, like and share it with friends, and post a review. I always appreciate reading them. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
Just a reminder, the information discussed in this podcast is general in nature. As we don't know your specific situation, you should always seek professional advice before taking any action. For free market reports on your suburbs of interest and other helpful resources to grow your wealth, make sure you join my property investor update at investorsedge.com.au/join. And finally, make sure you're a member of our Perth Property Investment Facebook group to be part of the conversation with other like-minded investors, get help to your questions, and get a feel for what's going on out there in the market. I'll see you in the group.